Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock, and I will call our June Town Council meeting to order. And it's my pleasure to welcome our guests, particularly our guests who are viewing online. Welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Farmville Town Council. The Reverend who was going to lead the invocation is not able to be with us. So what we will do is, in just a moment, we will stand and recite the Lord's Prayer. After that, Vice Mayor Reed, if you would kindly lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance. May we stand. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you kindly call the roll?
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Benson?
Here.
Mr. Terry?
Here.
Mrs. Waters?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
And Mr. Davis?
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Our next item is a public hearing, and it's public hearing in regards to ordinance number 195, establish a rebate for residential and commercial connection to the town water and sewer system. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak to that item?
No one signed up, man.
No one signed up, sir. Any other comments, Mr. Davis?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing no comments, we will bring that public hearing to a close. The next public hearing which we will open is on the proposed fiscal year 2021 town budget. Do we have anyone that has signed up to speak to the town budget?
We do. We have Alexander Dudley, who will be by conference call. Is Alexander Dudley on the conference call? Alexander Dudley? Chief, can you check and see if there's anybody by that name?
Alexander Dudley.
We don't have anybody for that name.
We do not have anybody to speak at that public hearing. Okay? With that, I will bring that public hearing to a close. The next public hearing is for the proposed amendments to the zoning map to update the entire Farmville zoning and subdivision ordinance and the comprehensive plan. Do we have anybody that signed up to speak to that?
We do not have anyone signed up to speak at this time. We do have two requests from citizens to read their comments. The first one is Bonnie Sheeler. The email states, I am writing as a longtime resident of Belmont Circle. I strongly disagree with the changes that are pending to the size of a lot necessary for building a home. We've had this fight with Rock River Homes, Corey before, when he built the third house on the left behind Applebee's. At that time, the council assured us that no home could be built on only 3 25-foot lots. He wants to build on 3 lots that would be the fourth house on the left behind Applebee's. The lot is only 3 sections wide, i.e. 75 feet, not the 80 required in the new regs. But we fear he will be allowed a variance and allowed to build there. Both Ms. Ramsey and the Smiths, who would be the neighbors on either side of this plot, object to squeezing another home in between them. They, like us, chose to live in this neighborhood because of the open spaces. Please don't allow the ambiance of the neighborhood to change by allowing a home on this little section of land. The other that I have to read is from Ed and Kathy Smith. We, Edmund and Kathy Smith, are respectfully requesting that a special instruction be added to the new zoning and land use map for Belmont Circle and Woodland Place neighborhood to keep the road frontage at 100 feet and the lot size at 20,000 square feet minimum, so that the housing density remain as it currently is. We disagree with the new definition of R1, which will increase the density of this neighborhood by 50%, from 2 houses per acre to 3 houses per acre, which is a significant change. The residents of this neighborhood objected to Rock River Homes building on lots that were less than the current R1 zoning. The neighborhood won that dispute. We have reason to believe that Rock River Homes will try to get a variance again if the definition of R1 is changed as proposed, and they or some other builder may have a better chance of getting it. This is definitely not what this community wants. We would like for the council to write special instructions into the new ordinance plan for this neighborhood to keep the current density, which is a minimum road frontage of 100 feet and a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. We do not want to have to fight with the zoning board over variances, and this special instruction should achieve that. This community does not want the density allowed by the new definition of R1, which is a very significant change and will result in a significant change in the character of this neighborhood. Respectfully, Ed and Kathy Smith, 212 Belmont Circle.
Do we have anyone else who signed up to speak or to?
Mr. Mayor, I also got 2 other families from that same neighborhood, Carl and Norma Canodal, and the Major family that has sent the same information that the town manager just read. Their concerns were similar to those of those parties.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else signed up?
There is not. Is there, I can ask on the conference call, is there anybody on the conference call that would like to speak to the comprehensive plan, zoning, and subdivision ordinance, or the zoning map?
I believe we have someone that was signed up to speak in person at the door.
They weren't for the zoning? I don't think so. No. We have 3 for public comment period
Okay.
that are here in person. But not for the...
I have a letter or an email from Dr. Miller, who's chairman of the Planning Commission, that he asked me to read into the record tonight. Unfortunately, I was called to active duty by the Coast Guard and am in Georgia and cannot make it to the public hearing or the council meeting. However, as the chairperson of the Planning Commission, I wanted to share briefly the history of the fruitful process that brought Farmville to this moment. Almost 2 years ago to the day, you voted to approve the process of researching and drafting the comprehensive plan, zoning, and subdivision ordinance began. I am proud of what followed: 2 public input meetings, a widespread public survey, additional public outreach for feedback, extra public workshops in response to a desire for more information and time, a public hearing, and multiple comment periods and conversations on the street. All this plus the throughout input of the Berkeley Group has produced a draft and an ordinance that reflects and balances the voices of our neighbors with best practices in municipal planning. Your Planning Commission carefully vetted and revised it to make sure that it preserves the qualities that distinguish this community, aspires to solve its challenges, and anticipates the trends of the future. I'm gratified that it serves the needs of today's citizens and, as we learned in the State Certified Planning Commissioner class, those citizens who have not yet been born. Significant among these were affordable housing and careful development. I was thrilled that your Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend that Council approve the comprehensive plan, zoning and subdivision ordinance, and zoning map. We based our decision upon these 2 years of research and public and expert feedback, and I believe what you will consider tomorrow is careful, well-planned roadmap for the town's prospects that has the best interest of the town, present and future, in mind. Sincerely, John Miller, Chairman, Farmville Planning Commission. Anyone else? Mr. Davis?
No, sir.
Okay, if not, I will bring this public hearing to a close. The next item is the public comment period. Do we have anyone signed up for the public comment period?
The first one is a Devin Swan. Is he here?
Devin Swan.
Gary Barton.
Back here.
There's an X right there, sir.
Good evening, sir, and welcome. X marks the spot.
Okay, thank you. Got a lot of X's to do. All right, good evening. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I hope to, this is called a public hearing. I really don't consider this a public hearing. I think the public hearing is where the public can actually sit in, listen, and ask questions. So I don't think the phone calls and all that really meet the definition of a public hearing. That's my opinion. I think there's a lot here. I don't know. I would hope that it would have been an open hearing where we could hear, go through this, and then be able to ask questions. I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly not an expert on zoning and such, but there's so many changes here to go through, and I think it was published in the paper, but it just seems like not a good time to be having a hearing for with the COVID-19 virus and all the restrictions, to be holding a public hearing that's going to change so much in the town of Farmville without any real input other than one or two people maybe on a phone. One thing I do have a question to ask, and I would have liked to have asked a lot of questions if this had all been gone over at a public hearing where questions could be asked. I see something about state-owned lands and buildings are exempt from local zoning regulations, provided that they are used for public purposes, and the Longwood University will therefore be rezoned from R3, R3A, R1, R1A. I guess it's supposed to be and B2, it's add B2. To have no zoning district applied. I'd like a clarification on that from someone, please.
Do you want me to answer?
I'd like to know what it means.
The Commonwealth of Virginia is not applicable to any local zoning standard.
Well, does that mean that they buy a house next to my house, they can do whatever they want there?
If it's owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia, yes, sir. If it's owned by a not-for-profit of the Commonwealth, then no.
I don't think it's acceptable, and it hasn't been in the past, for Longwood to buy a piece of property, such as the piece of property up on High Street on the left there, which the name escapes me who owned it last. I believe it was, I'm not sure anyhow. It was bought by a private individual, sold to Longwood, and they wanted to, I think, use it as a conference center. And that's a little closer to Longwood than I am, but it was deemed at that time unacceptable, and that was not done. So now you're telling me anywhere in town, if they buy property with our tax money, residential or not, they can do what they want to with it? I mean, how did this law all of a sudden change?
If it hasn't changed.
Well,
The
that's
com-
never been the policy before.
If it's by the Commonwealth of Virginia, there's a difference if the foundation, if a university foundation buys it, then that's a different story, because they're a nonprofit organization, they would have to follow the zoning ordinance. But if it's owned by the university itself, which is a subdivision of the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth has never had to adhere to zoning practices.
Well, I think that's totally unacceptable.
That's not a local ordinance,
It
though.
should
That's a
be-
state law.
It should be that the town and the citizenry should have some say here. I've never heard that they can just buy a piece of property and do anything they want to with it just because it's state-owned.
As Mr. Davis said, that's not a local policy. If you look at the pecking order, it's federal, state, local. And so we're at the bottom of that pecking order, so if the feds or the state choose to do something, we do not have
So you
jurisdiction
think
over
that's a
that.
good policy? You would really like that policy?
Third,
You would really like that policy where they can buy anywhere and put anything in they want regardless of where it is?
it's not a matter of what I like or don't like, that's what the law is.
Well, that's the first time, as I said, I'm not an expert on this, maybe you are, but I've never heard of such before. I thought the town had some control.
Madam, Mr. Attorney, would you like
Residents
to
had some
clarify very
control.
quickly?
I don't think I have anything to add, it's just we don't have the authority to regulate what a state agency does or a state affiliate. They're not, they don't have to comply. Local governments cannot force the state government to do anything with regard to zoning issues. And that's all.
You think that's a good law? They can move in any residential area and just take it over? Does this require eminent domain, or does they
Doesn't
just
really matter
buy
about
and
that.
then do what they want?
Yeah, that's exactly right, they can do what they want.
To me, that's unacceptable, and I would like maybe to research that myself, because I think that's bad policy. I don't really think at this point Longwood is quite the asset to the town that it used to be, and I do not think they should be controlling the town and what goes on in the town. I think the town should have some control and represent its citizenry. Not that Longwood, being considered a state entity, should do whatever they want, regardless of the feelings of the residents.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your
All right,
comments.
thank you.
Mr. Davis, do we have anyone else? signed up?
And when do you expect to have real public hearings?
The town will follow, or is following, the governor's opening procedures, so when we get to that phase that allows us to reopen, we will.
Do you have any idea when?
No, sir.
Why was it imperative that all of this be heard while we were in a shutdown? Couldn't this have been delayed?
Well, we actually started this process, I suppose you were not in the room, 2 years ago, and there have been multiple public hearings, multiple events for the public to participate in all this, so we're just basically continuing a timeline that we started 2 years ago.
Okay. When will this be voted on then?
That's up to the pleasure of council.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I apologize, Mayor, for that. He had shared with us, his public comment was about opening council meetings to the public, so. The only others we have is Devin Swan and Andrea Swick.
Anyone else, chief, out there?
No, sir.
Okay.
Is there anybody on the conference line that wishes to speak public comment period wise?
Okay, if not, we'll bring the public comment section to close and move to the regular order of business. Item 9 is request for approval of the consent agenda. Do I have anyone who wants to pull anything out of the consent agenda? And if I don't, do I hear a motion to approve it?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 10, request approval of the treasurer's report. Madam Treasurer?
Yes, sir, you have the treasurer's report before you. Do you have any questions? Nothing's really changed since last month. Taxes are still coming in. Slow, but they're coming.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the treasurer's report as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 11, request to pay the bills. Any questions on the bills?
Mayor, I move that we grant authorization to the town treasurer to pay the bills as presented. Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
And Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 12, request authorization, request adoption. You would help if I wore the glasses. Request adoption of resolution of respect for Elder Novi Wiley Sr. Mr. Davis, would you read the resolution?
Town of Farmville, Virginia, Town of Farmville, resolution of respect for Elder Novi Wiley Sr. Whereas the love and commitment of Elder Wiley to serve others was tireless, and whereas his integrity, honor, and values earned him the respect of the entire community and beyond, and whereas Elder Wiley served faithfully for over 28 years as the pastor of Spirit of Life Church of God in Christ here in the town of Farmville, and whereas for over 30 years he was a source of inspiration to many as he gave words of encouragement and played gospel music every Sunday on WFLO. And whereas he had a deep love of music and became a musically talented recording artist, and whereas Elder Wiley's service to his family, the church, and the community will leave a lifelong legacy. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the town of Farmville does hereby express its deepest respect to a dedicated man of God who through his love of service to others help make the Farmville community a better place to live. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of respect is made a part of the permanent records of the town of Farmville, and a copy be presented to his family. Adopted this 10th day of June 2020 by the Farmville Town Council, Farmville, Virginia.
Do I hear a motion?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. We accept the resolution as been presented.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Hunter, we're going to present that at a future,
Probably next month.
next month. We'll present it to, there'll be some family members here to present it to.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Item 13, how ironic. Item number 13. Request adoption of a resolution of appreciation for Councilmember Jamie Davis. Mr. Davis, Mr. Scott Davis, would you kindly read that resolution?
And no, we're not brothers, but
Right, I was going to say, a disclaimer for those watching, there is no relation between the Davises.
And he is the town manager.
Town of Farmville, resolution of appreciation for Town Council member Jamie Davis. Whereas Jamie Davis has faithfully served as a member of the Farmville Town Council for 8 years, and whereas Mr. Davis has served the citizens of Farmville unselfishly and with enthusiasm, integrity, and professionalism, and whereas he has been a dedicated voice for the citizens of Ward E, representing them with pride, and whereas Mr. Davis has served as chairman of the Town Council Finance and Ordinance Committee, meticulously working with committee members and staff to reduce the town's debt, and whereas he has worked diligently with Town Council and staff to implement the new town financial policies and was instrumental in the completion of major improvement projects. Now therefore be it resolved that the Farmville Town Council expresses its deepest appreciation to Mr. Jamie Davis for his faithful service to Farmville's Town Council and the employees, as well as the citizens of the town of Farmville. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be placed in the minute book of the Farmville Town Council, adopted this 10th day of June 2020 by the town council of the town of Farmville, signed by each of the members present.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution for Councilmember J.J.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Additionally, in keeping with the tradition of what we have done in the past for departing council members, I would ask council that we allow Mr. Davis to take his iPad with him so he can forevermore remember his time and experiences. But I need a motion to do that. Motion second. Okay. And since we're actually disposing of town property, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
I decline to vote.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
So the iPad is all yours.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly appreciate the resolution and filled with gratitude. I do appreciate it.
We will, how about we formally present it at the end so we can not have to, you have to be here through June the 30th anyway, so we will do the presentation at the end of this meeting. Item 14, request authorization to refund 2020 business license for the Three Oaks Pet Resort LLC. Mr. Davis?
Mayor, the town treasurer is asking to refund a partial payment in the amount of $378 on the 2020 business license for Three Oaks Pet Resort. The business has been sold and it's under new ownership, and this would be a refund for the portion of the year that they're not in business in that name.
Do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I move that we authorize the town treasurer to refund a partial payment in the amount of $378 on the 2020 business license for Three Oaks Pet Resort LLC, provided their 2020 business personal property taxes paid.
Second.
Motion and second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
And Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 15, request adoption of ordinance number 195, establish a rebate for residential and commercial connection to the town water sewer system. Mr. Davis?
Mayor, at the April 2020 work session, council approved for us to advertise for this public hearing to establish a water sewer tap fee incentive to boost the economy during this pandemic. If you'll remember, several years back, you did two different ones. One was exactly the same as this one, the very first one that you all did, where the incentive is that for each water and sewer connection fee, the person would pay the fee up front that it cost, and then once the project is completed, they will get the rebate is it will get all money back except for $1,000. This is effective for 18 months, so it would be retroactive to April 1st, 2020, as you all suggested, through October 31st, 2021. And the ordinance allows us, because our water and sewer rates and the regulations are by town code, this ordinance allows us to do that for 18 months to supersede that existing town code since if you pass this ordinance.
What is the pleasure of council?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 195, establish a rebate for residential and commercial connection to the town water and sewer system effective April 1st, 2020 through October 31st, 2021.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
And Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 16, schedule a meeting for the adoption of the proposed 2021 budget.
Mayor, members of council, you held your required public hearing by law on the proposed budget. The other is that you have to wait 7 days by statute before you can approve the budget. So we would need for you all to set a date to come back and meet again in order to approve the budget that is at least 7 days out from today.
Proposed dates, it'll have to be after next Wednesday.
It have to be 7 days, yes.
Could that be done at the retreat, Mr. Mayor?
I would suggest not doing it at that location.
Okay.
I would-
How about, Mr. Hunter, you're looking at your calendar, how about next Friday? Next Friday, the right Friday morning or afternoon, it'll take every bit of 10 minutes.
19.
The 19th, how's the 19th look for everybody? Best day in the world.
And
That-
just a reminder, I wouldn't be here, but you don't need me to be here.
I don't know if I'll be here or not, I might be going out of town.
Okay. As long as we have 4, we're good. Morning or afternoon? Doesn't matter, whatever. Morning, Mr. Reed, 10 a.m. or 11?
7:30? 8 o'clock?
Mr. Reed will be conducting that meeting. 10 or 11? 10? 10 a.m., all right. Reconvened at 10 a.m. on Friday, June the 19th for approval of the budget. Good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 17, request adoption of the fiscal year 2020-2021 classification and compensation plan. Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir. This would allow us to use, each year you should adopt a classification and compensation plan that would be used for that year for each grade of salary that employees are put into pay grades. And I'm asking that you have those in your packets for each grade in the pay scale that you would approve us beginning July 1st through June 30, 2021.
Those were in the packet. Any questions? Not, do I hear a motion to approve them?
I move that we approve the 2021 classification and compensation plan.
Second.
Motion and second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
And Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion passes. Item 18, request adoption of the 2025-year capital improvement program.
Yes, sir. This is another one that you will need to do each year, and that is stipulating that the capital improvements that we're planning for, and it shows where they potentially can be funded or if they already are funded in future years, and it helps us prepare each year for the budget in the future. Each year will change as we drop off a year and add a year.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adopt the 2025-year capital improvement program as presented.
Second. Motion and second. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion passes. Mr. Davis, the next 3 or 4 items all have to do with the comp plan, and we have representatives from the Berkeley group here. Are they going to speak?
Yes, sir. They have a presentation for the comp plan, the zoning and subdivision ordinance, and the zoning map.
Okay.
First, I'll call Kelly Davis, and no, we're not related either. And she'll be talking about the comprehensive plan first.
We can almost have a Davis family reunion here tonight, couldn't we?
It's a great last name.
Kelly, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Again, my name is Kelly Davis, and I am most certainly pleased to be here before you tonight. So the Berkeley Group has been with the town of Farmville throughout this process since 2018. I would be remiss if not to mention Rebecca Cobb, who will be joining me for the latter portion of this presentation as well. And also on the phone, unfortunately unable to be with us here and present tonight, Drew Williams and Catherine Redfern have contributed to this project as well and may be able to join if there are specific questions that related to certain topics. So we'll begin this presentation tonight with just a brief overview of the update process, and then I'll guide you through the changes, the highlights of the draft comprehensive plan. We'll pause for a moment for questions on the comprehensive plan, and then Rebecca will join me to discuss the draft zoning ordinance and the map amendment, as well as any next steps. For the benefit of the council and those that may be viewing either online or here tonight, I want to briefly overview the differences between a comprehensive plan and the zoning and subdivision ordinance. So these two very different but very important documents relating to land use and development in the town of Farmville. The comprehensive plan is the document that sets that overarching vision for the physical development of the community. This is your long-range guide. It's the compass. It sets your direction and then maps your course to get to your established future. Typically, this is a 20-year time frame that we're thinking about as we think about the comprehensive plan. It's used by residents, developers, city staff, yourself as public officials to make decisions related to development. It's adopted by town council, and the state actually requires that this document be reviewed every 5 years. And as a best practice, we recommend that just you're constantly referring back to your comprehensive plan, looking at it annually to make sure that you're on the right path and making any course corrections as needed. The zoning and subdivision, on the other hand, carries the weight of law. It is an ordinance enacted by the community, and it sets that legal process for dividing land and establishing land uses based on zoning districts. This is used by residents, developers, and city staff as well to guide development, but truly carrying that weight of law. This is adopted by a town council, again following public hearing, and it should be updated as needed, but it's not required to be updated like the comprehensive plan is every 5 years. But we do recommend that this be reviewed annually because state code is always, every legislative session, there's new zoning requirements that are enacted, and then the town needs to incorporate those into your zoning ordinance. So for this particular process, this checklist kind of shows you all of the different steps that we've been through. There was multiple work sessions, both with town council and planning commission on their own, multiple opportunities to engage the public through open house events. We had 2 events, I believe, in this room where we had different boards and were able to answer questions in a more informal format than the public hearing. And then here tonight, we obviously are at the town council public hearing. We were also back in May for the public hearing for planning commission. Briefly, just want to highlight some of the community outreach summary that is included in the plan. Overwhelmingly, 81% said that Farmville could benefit from both residential and commercial development. And so the practices and strategies that are included in the comprehensive plan do focus on approaches that could integrate that vision at the same time balancing character and community history and these other values that were established as we performed community surveys and community outreach. So again, kind of touched on this earlier, but what is the comprehensive plan? It's a publicly supported vision for the future. It's a statement of goals on various planning elements relating to the physical development of the community. And then each section of the plan includes strategies to achieve set goals, and of course in compliance with Virginia requirements. This is an outline for the comprehensive plan, and I'll move chapter by chapter fairly quickly. But again, introduction, and then there's several different planning elements relating to the development of the community. And then the final chapter is related to implementation. The comprehensive plan sets out the community's vision. I've said this a number of times. And for the record, I will go ahead and read Farmville's community vision as established in the comprehensive plan. Farmville is a historic community with strong ties to education, retail, tourism, and outdoor recreation. Using these assets, Farmville will continue to strategically plan for growth that delivers jobs, economic opportunities, and amenities that improve the lives of a diverse population while preserving small town character. This vision really serves as a guide and truly aligns each of the goals and strategies. And this is what we were thinking about as we develop strategies with the community, with Planning Commission, that you will see in this plan. Then moving into each chapter, each topic, each chapter provides some maps, some background information that I would encourage the council to review along with the community that may be watching tonight. The environment chapter just shows your parks, trails, rivers that really define the community. And then it sets the goal to preserve Farmville's natural resources while protecting people and property from natural hazards. The strategies are listed here, and they talk about things like appropriate stormwater and environmental standards, using the river and stream corridors for tourism, improving landscaping and urban tree canopy requirements, as well as taking steps to help improve the community's flood protection. The cultural resources chapter provides some history and context for this plan. The map shows various cultural resource assets in the community, and the goal for this chapter is to promote the history of the town as an asset for tourism and economic development. The strategies here highlight the importance of historic buildings, using the assets that you have and improving upon them to highlight the town's identity. Also promoting civil rights history, and also incorporating the higher education institution and the historic campuses that kind of all come together to form this unique community. The population and housing chapter looks at various statistics and related to demographics and housing in the community. The goal here is to provide for the needs of a diverse community with quality, affordable housing for all. Housing was really important in this plan, and as well as in the zoning ordinance. And so some of the strategies here are really about expanding housing opportunities, including multifamily residential, creating new opportunities for families and young professionals that would like to live here, and ensuring that both adaptive reuse as an option as well as rehabbing of homes that may need a little extra attention to be able to lift up the neighborhoods to the quality that the community expects. Economic development was also important through the development of this plan. This map shows some of the various incentive areas and major economic drivers in the community, including the Main Street area, local enterprise zones, Longwood University, of course, and the hospital. The goal here is to actively build a diversified economy that serves the many needs of Farmville citizens and is an economic engine for the region. Some of the various strategies here are identifying ways such as wayfinding that can help promote tourism and the way that visitors move around the community. Also, of course, partnering with Prince Edward and Cumberland counties to attract and actively recruit businesses in the area, as Farmville is the center of this area, but not necessarily having a lot of land. This partnership is incredibly important. Community facilities chapter highlights all of the various community facilities and amenities that are located here. This map shows parks and trails as just one of the many areas that, and the services that the community offers. The goal here is to provide high quality and cost-effective administration, public works, water, sewer, law enforcement, parks, and events that enhance the town's character and livability. The Utilities Master Plan is a key strategy that came out of the development of this chapter and the need to address various issues such as inflow and infiltration for some of those sewer and stormwater pipes that are aging. There was also strong desire to continue improving local education to make the community more attractive for families that would want to live here. The future land use chapter is really important. It really is the driver for the physical development of the locality. This is your future land use map, and I'll go into each of these different areas in a little more detail. The future land use map establishes these various different land use categories, so parks and open space, and this is called a transect, so it's showing the lowest density areas and how development changes to the highest density areas through various levels of residential, downtown commercial, mixed-use commercial, and general commercial areas. The key changes here are really to create a little bit more distinction between the various land use designations. The previous comprehensive plan showed residential, mixed-use, commercial, educational, and then an open space category. And what we've heard through the community engagement is really focusing on breaking this down a little bit further. So the new categories for residential include low density, moderate density, and urban residential areas. The mixed use and commercial areas have been further defined to downtown, mixed use, and general categories. And then we have institutional and parks and open space that have remained similar. Another component of the land use chapter that is important to highlight is these planning focus areas. And these are areas of the community and certain neighborhoods where there was strong sentiment from the community to provide a little bit more detail and attention, not to the extent of a full-blown small area plan, but these 5 areas identify specific strategies and improvements that are needed and desired by the community over the next 20 years to occur in these areas. The goal for the future land use chapter is to plan for a balance of compatible land uses meeting the community and economic needs of the growing town. Mixed-use development, continuing to build this downtown, and while at the same time keeping the small town and historic vibe of the community was something that we heard frequently throughout the process. There was also some discussion about housing, as I mentioned before, allowing for some higher density development and promoting infill and redevelopment to ensure that highest and best use of land within town. The transportation chapter is another key chapter of your comprehensive plan, and this chapter was reviewed by Virginia Department of Transportation. This is the last of those key planning elements, so just stick with me. The transportation chapter sets out a set of priority transportation improvement projects, and I'd encourage you to look at these a little bit further. And there's a map that accompanies this list of priority transportation projects. The goal here is to provide a safe, efficient, and attractive system of town-scaled streets that welcome pedestrians, bicycles, and automobile traffic. There's a strong sentiment of multimodal, so allowing for improved pedestrians, better sidewalks, And so various strategies here support that, the idea of trails, streetscape improvements, the creation of a pedestrian and bicycle master plan, expanded transportation services, and the idea of potentially finding ways to mitigate the tractor-trailer traffic downtown, as well as wayfinding signage and other parking improvements. And the final chapter of the comprehensive plan is implementation, and this is really where the real work begins. The implementation chapter sets out each strategy and then identifies this anticipated time frame in which each strategy should or could be accomplished. We would encourage as a best practice annual review of the comprehensive plan to, as I mentioned before, kind of course correct, identify ways to coordinate the comprehensive plan with the capital improvement process, as well as the annual budget process. And with that, I stand ready to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? Your partner's going to present as well.
Yes.
Okay, let's. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. Rebecca Cobb with Berkeley Group. And I'm going to talk about the zoning and subdivision ordinance text amendments first. And so some of the question first is, why are we amending the zoning and subdivision ordinance? And so as Kelly mentioned previously, Virginia Code is changing annually, and so we want to make sure that you are in compliance with the Virginia Code. You've also been looking at your comprehensive plan, and you want your zoning ordinance to support the goals of that comprehensive plan. Also, you want to meet community needs, and you want it to be organized and very clear so that anyone from staff to you all to someone on the street who just wants to know, can I do this type of business on my property, they should be able to turn to the ordinance and easily discern that answer. So your ordinance structure, currently it is divided into in general, permits and certificates, district regulations, Board of Zoning Appeals, floodplain district, and satellite antennas. And so you notice right off the bat there, the floodplain district and the satellite antennas are quite different than those other categories. Those are kind of tacked on at the end. And so what we have proposed are in general, administration, zoning districts, and that's where we have moved that floodplain district into. We are creating a new article, community design and standards. We're also pulling out the non-conforming uses so that can be easily turned to. And we're inserting the subdivision regulations as part of the zoning ordinance and pulling out the definitions as a separate article. And we'll just go through each of these a little bit and talk about what has changed. So Article 1, your in general, it contains the purpose, applicability, and severability. We align the language with state code and updated with accurate code references. Your Article 2 is your administration. This contains boards and commissions, permits and applications, enforcement and appeal. We've aligned the language with state code, we've added code references, and we've updated the permit and application processes just to make sure we are following what the procedures have been in the office, as well as making it clear for applicants to know exactly what they need to submit. Article 3, your zoning districts. I'll give a quick summary here, and then we're going to dive in a little bit more to each of these, because this is where the most substantive changes have occurred in the ordinance. So we've consolidated districts, and then we have redefined the purposes of the districts, and that in part is due to that consolidation. When we define, we want to make sure that we're capturing, the districts that have been consolidated, as well as answering to that call from your comprehensive plan and the public request about what districts should show and what should be available. We've compiled district standards into a table and adjusted to match the consolidation and purpose statements. We've compiled all uses into a table called the zoning use matrix, so now you have all of the town's uses in one place that can easily be turned to. We've added new uses, adjusted use terms for broader application, and changed some use categories. So for example, nursing homes in R3 has changed from by right to a conditional use. And there may be uses that were not previously allowed and now they are conditional uses. So taking a look at the consolidation of districts. The R1 and R1A have been consolidated to an R1, and we've also given all of the districts names that easily identify what does that R1 mean or that R2. So the R1 is low density residential. The R2 is remaining R2, it's medium density residential. R3, R3A, and R4 are now proposed as R3 high density residential. R5 is R4 mobile homes. B1 is B1 downtown commercial. B2 and B4 are being combined into a B2 transitional commercial. B3 is remaining B3 highway commercial. And then we also have the floodplain overlay district that is remaining in your ordinance, but is being located here with all of your districts. One thing to note too about this consolidation of districts is that this also creates the need for a zoning map amendment. And so we will talk about that after we go through the zoning ordinance, but that's the reason, or one of the reasons for the zoning map amendment is this consolidation of districts. And so this is a look at the dimensional standards table that I mentioned. This is the portion covering the residential base districts. So you have on the left-hand side, each zoning district, the R1, low density residential, R2, medium density residential, and R3, high density residential. The R1 lot area is proposed to decrease from 20,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet. The R2 lot area is proposed to decrease from 10,000 square feet for single-family dwellings to 8,000 square feet. The R2 lot area for two-family dwellings is proposed to decrease from 15,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet. And these reductions are due in part because of that consolidation, but also, as Kelly mentioned in the comprehensive plan, what we heard from the public was a need for housing options. And so this is one way to create more housing options and to allow infill into the community. There's also reductions here in setbacks and frontage. Another reduction, or actually an increase is the high density residential maximum building height was increased from 35 feet to 45 feet. And this is just a graphic, because that R3 district, I'll go back to that for just a moment, that R3 district does show a density of 16 dwelling units per acre, and that was something that we had a lot of questions about during open house and that sort of thing, and that's hard to visualize. And so we've created this graphic here that does show that. So starting on the right-hand side, those large, big gray squares represent an acre. And so the houses there are 1 to 2 units on an acre. And then the middle image is 6 to 8 units on an acre. And then that left image is 12 to 18 units on an acre. And so that's what's proposed for that R3 district. So it doesn't look a lot different from, some of the streets that I drove to come here today. And just for reference, then behind that is higher densities, 18 to 36, and then 50 plus units. Continuing on the dimensional standards chart, this is the commercial base districts. So your B1, downtown commercial, B2, transitional commercial, and B3, highway commercial. The main change here is with your B1, we have opened this up quite a bit for the area and setback and frontage. We're not having any requirements there, and that's just to allow your downtown to truly be a downtown, to be quaint and comfortable for development. Another change here is your B2. We have reduced the maximum building height to 45 feet. It was 65, and we've made that 45 feet, so that is truly a transition. You have your taller buildings for your downtown, and then you transition into commercial and into housing. This is a small portion of your use matrix. So this is all of the uses for the town, and this takes up several pages of your zoning ordinance because it does capture all of the uses that are allowed within the town. So you'll see the uses on the left-hand side, and then going across the right at the top lists each district. And so you can, use this matrix in two different ways. You can select a use and see which districts it might be prohibited or conditional or by right, or you can look at a particular zoning district and go down that column and see which uses might be allowed within that district. And you'll notice here maybe some new uses, so commercial indoor recreational amusement is something new, but really it's just capturing uses that you already have. So things like bowling alley, pool hall, and this allows you to allow more uses without requiring more zoning amendments for your ordinance each time a new business venture comes along. You can easily supply it with one of these uses. Moving on to the next article, community design and standards. This contains signs, landscaping, parking, utilities, and standards for specific uses. Taking a look at signs. Your signs looks quite a bit different, and that's because of a court case, Reed versus Town of Gilbert, which basically says you cannot regulate based on the content. Your regulations have to be content neutral. Or in other words, if to enforce a regulation you have to read the sign, then that regulation is an illegal one. And so what we've done to make it content neutral is make sure we're identifying signs by their style. So we identify window, freestanding, projecting, wall, canopy, lots of different styles of signs. And then we regulate those by the number that can be on a piece of property, the area of the sign, and the height of the signs. There are prohibited signs, such as off-premise signs, and signs that could be distracting or dangerous, especially for motorists. We also require permits for certain signs in the sign section. Landscaping. This is a new section. This was driven by the input of public and staff. The inclusion of landscaping is going to elevate the appearance and the feel of the community. The inclusion of this also answers to the comprehensive plan. That environmental chapter does speak to landscaping and tree canopy. And so this is an answer to one of those strategies in your proposed comprehensive plan. But because it's new, we didn't want to go too far and get too strong with the requirements. So we've just done very minimal requirements, just as an introduction for the town. This is going to apply to new developments and redevelopments. Buffers are required to reduce conflicts between uses. There's requirement for screening for dumpsters and requirements for parking lots. The parking lots mostly pertains to the outskirts of the parking lot, and internal landscaping gets triggered when there's 150 lots or spaces in a lot. And so that's quite a large parking lot, but we thought that was a good first step for landscaping for the community. Parking, we've incorporated requirements for new uses. We've adjusted parking requirements with best practices, and we're making sure that parking can be shared so that you're not, being overburdened with just parking spaces. The utilities contains underground utility requirements as well as requirements for telecommunications, including height limits based on districts, setback requirements, and that they must consider the character of the neighborhood before putting up a pole or attaching to a structure. This section also contains standards for specific uses, so we've added standards for new uses such as multifamily dwelling, mixed-use structure, mobile restaurant, and short-term rental. We've also amended some of the existing standards based on best practices and town need. The non-conforming uses, not a lot to say here. Mostly this is dictated by state code, so we just wanted to make sure it was clear and streamlined and that it was matching the state code requirements. The subdivision ordinance is being repealed from a standalone ordinance to a portion of the zoning ordinance. And we've restructured it for ease of use. We've edited for compliance with state code, and there have been some changes to policy and procedures to streamline the processes and enhance future development. Examples of that are we're allowing administrative approval, boundary line adjustment, and vacation plats, and requiring the dedication of land for sidewalks and business zone subdivisions. The definition section, we've added definitions requested by commission and staff. We've added definitions for new uses, so microbrewery, microdistillery, mixed-use structure, those types of things have been added. We've also altered definitions for community applicability, clarity, or state code compliance. So for example, the definition of family, I believe your current ordinance says that it's 3 unrelated persons, and there was a request by Planning Commission to increase that to 4 unrelated persons, so that has been done, as well as family home daycare. That's a state requirement, and state requires a specific definition for that, and so that has been input into your ordinance. Uses and terms no longer included in the updated zoning ordinance have been deleted to make sure those are clear and there's no misunderstanding as to why it's included in the definitions but isn't in the use matrix. And so that's all for the zoning ordinance, and I'll answer questions or move into the zoning map amendment, whichever.
We'll save questions.
Okay. So the zoning map amendment, we want this to be in compliance with Virginia requirements, as well as implement the future land use map. We're also reflecting changes to the zoning text, so that's that consolidation of districts that I mentioned previously. There was also, we're wanting to tie it to parcel boundaries. So the town had several groups of parcels that were actually zoned 2 different things. So one portion of the parcel might be business and one portion residential. And so we're correcting those to make sure that the entire parcel is zoned one thing. This is the current zoning map, and you'll see all your districts there laid out, and that's going to condense quite a bit. Here is your proposed zoning map, so you'll see fewer colors here because of that consolidation of the districts. And we'll take a look at this and look at commercial and residential kind of individually, because it makes it a little bit clearer on the map. So this is your existing commercial zones. And then this is the proposed commercial zones, and you'll see B3, B4, that combination there to B3. And so we've highlighted some key changes here. You'll see a little yellow circle and some numbers. So 1 and 2 are indicating areas that we've extended transitional commercial zone to allow more flexibility and better design along the entrance corridor. And this also matches the comprehensive plan. Number 3, we're eliminating split parcel zoning and extending transitional commercial zone. Number 4, we're converting B4 zone to B3. That's in that southern portion of the town. And then number 5, extending B3 zoning to match current rezonings and future land use. Moving on, looking at the residential, this is the current residential zones. And then the proposed residential zones. Again, you see the combining of districts, and we've identified key changes here as well. You'll see items 1 and 2 are eliminating split parcel zoning. Items 3 and 5 are the identification of Commonwealth-owned property that's not subject to zoning. Number 4 is change from mobile homes to high-density residential. Number 6 is combining R1 and R1A zones. And number 7 is combining R3 and R4 zones. And so the next steps would be adoption, and then probably most important of all, implementation, and then annual review. And I would just like to thank you for your time tonight, and we are available for questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. If you'll hold just a minute. Mr. Davis, you have a handout and some things that you wanted to present as well. And then after you do that, you'll do questions of everyone.
wanted to just touch base on where this started from, and to where we are today, and the work that has gone into this by so many people. You know, this conversation started about an update to the comp plan before I arrived in 2017, and when I got here in 2017, in October 2017, there was a little bit of concern about a development that was being planned just up the road from us. And a lot of that had to do with zoning issues and comp plan issues. And so it became very clear that we had a very old zoning ordinance, had minimal changes. Most of it was still from 1973. That's where this definition section that we have proposed is so much better. We got rid of a lot of things that were not even accurate anymore of what we had, and what was being added is what we do have in town now, or can have in the future. This starts out, I'm not going to read it all to you, but in chronological order from June of 18, when you first approved management to sign a contract for this process with the Berkeley Group. And from there, it talks about all the meetings, kickoff meeting to a first community input, to a second community input, to a public survey for over a month, a year almost of drafting, and so on. And so I just want to say that through all of this, we've had probably, in my conversations with people that work for the town or have been with the town, this is probably the most public input that people have been offered or been given the opportunity to be a part of at some point in time through this whole process. Over almost 24 months, we've had a lot of abilities and opportunities for people to have that chance. You know, two in particular places that showed concern in this at two different times. A neighborhood near Buffalo and High in that area had concerns about the multifamily and what it was, but what it could change to from the R3A and those types of things with that new 16 units. The part of this that we've got to think about is it's not just about today. This is about what we do 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and what we want the town of Farmville to look like. How do we continue to make this a prosperous place? How do we have housing opportunities, job opportunities for people that aren't even here yet? Or how do we attract those? You know, we had we had a housing study. I'm not even going to call it affordable because it talked about all different types of housing opportunities that was done. And what it showed is that we need opportunities not only in single family, but duplexes, condominiums, multifamily, a whole sorts of different housing opportunities. And so, you know, by some of those individuals coming to the open houses that we had two. If you remember, we even paid additional to have more community input so that we could share this and have one-on-one or sometimes two-on-one with the Berkeley Group to explain. We had charts up here, we had diagrams to explain all this. And all that was sent out for people to get opportunities to come in and hear that information directly. And so I think, you know, we haven't necessarily heard, and not that they still don't have a concern, but we haven't heard as much, and it's Mr. Vincent's ward, so I'll allow him if he wants to say anything about that from his constituents, not to put him on the spot, but I did, about those concerns. I think we've tried to reiterate that it's not going to happen overnight. Somebody's not going to come in and tear down, you know, 6 lots on a certain street to build a multifamily dwelling. These are opportunities to look in the future if that is so desirable. It gives that opportunity. The latest, as we heard tonight, is from a subdivision that's established, which is Belmont Circle and Woodland Place. And, I did listen to their concerns. I've received several emails. I've tried to explain some of that. And what I want to explain here tonight is about that one, is it kind of came within the last few weeks about that type of what was happening. And one of the things is that they didn't actually receive a mailer. We mailed over 1,014 mailings, but they were for properties that were getting actually rezoned. Not the change in language to the zoning ordinance does not require a mailing. We have to do a public hearing, which we have done, but we don't have to do a mailing for that type of change. And so, but we did all the other requirements in doing that. The main concern that I got from these different emails is the expression of concern over the language in 20,000 square feet moving to 14,000 square feet, which is the current size in R1A. And I would tell you that lot size had to have been done when zoning became established in the town, probably in the 1960s, I'm assuming. But there's houses here before that, because there's some houses today that we can't, if they would be non-conforming because they can't meet the lot size, and they're on Griffin, the avenues, and Longwood Avenue, and some other places, that if you go to change it, we do have a provision that you can build it in the same footprint because of when it was done, but it doesn't meet that size any longer. And 20,000 square feet is almost a half an acre, which is a large lot for a municipality. Municipalities do not traditionally have half acre to an acre lots. That's more for a rural type of area. But in the other way is the change from 100-foot lot to 80-foot lots. And their concern seems to be over a few different ones, one in particular, that someone has tried that has a 75-foot lot. However, the minimum lot size of that one is 18,000 square feet. It just doesn't meet the frontage. And the Board of Zoning Appeals has turned that down on a variance before because it didn't meet certain requirements. By changing to 80, it still does not meet the requirement of 80 feet. It's 75 feet of frontage. So I looked at this because I took their concerns a little more seriously as we went through this with several emails. There are 12 lots that have no primary structure on them. They're undeveloped in that neighborhood. There are 10 of these lots can be developed under the 14,000 square feet and 80 foot of frontage, or the current 20,000 square feet. And no, the lot, none of the lots of the 10 are the one that Rock River owns, which is the 75. Only one of these 10 can be subdivided into another 14,000 square foot lot or more. At the end of the day, this neighborhood is established, so the density concern of being able to have more houses on top of one another is not going to be easy to do because of the availability of lots. There's 37 lots in that subdivision. There's only 12 available, undeveloped. Only 10 of those are buildable. So the density concern is not as great of an issue that may be suspected. And I just wanted to point some of those things out. I also want to point out that the people from Berkeley that have helped and worked with us have been wonderful. We hired a professional organization to help us do this over a 2-year span. If you add in the cost of them, which you approved, so you know that number, but all the advertisements, printing, we're over $150,000 in this measure. And I think what has been presented, I'll echo what Mr. Miller said in his remarks, is I think we have a high quality comprehensive plan coming out. We have a much, much better zoning and subdivision ordinance than we currently have. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. We're going to have to make changes. and they know that, and they've made that comment tonight. And I just want to thank everybody that's been a part of this, even the council and the mayor here tonight. You've had some joint meetings, but this has been a long road. 2 years on a project is quite some time, and I think everyone should feel accomplished in doing this, because I don't know that something of this magnitude has been done, and I think everybody should feel positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. It has been a long 2-year process, and everybody's been involved and had input. And so I want to one more time give council an opportunity. The Berkeley group is here. Let's go around the table. Mr. Hunter, we'll start with you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you would like to express about any of these plans, now's your opportunity.
I mean, it has been a long process, but it's been positive from my perspective. I don't know how many hours you all spent on this. I'm pretty sure we looked at the bills, we could see. But it just seems like we just need to move forward on it. And we have to do some adjustment after that. We'll go from there.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, Mayor. I had the fortune and pleasure to be at many of the public meetings here in these chambers. And actually was one of the folks who advocated for that additional meeting so that we could have even more public input. So I really feel as if we did our due diligence in seeking to give ample opportunity for the public to weigh in. I know from my ward there has been some concerns, but there's been equal as many folks concerned about the lack of affordable housing. And I think one of the emails I received finished with the question of should an ideal place have a variety of homeowner choices available to attract a wide assortment of new citizens to the area. And I believe that this plan does that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Perry?
As we all know, I've had multiple calls and multiple emails from different constituents, primarily out of the Belmont Circle and the Woodland Place area, and they have asked me extensively to please represent them as far as their thoughts are concerned on this. I've listened to what they've presented to us tonight. I've followed this for 2 years. I feel like we've done due diligence. I feel like that what we're asking for is reasonable. I do understand these people's concerns. I know what it feels like to think that you're not getting a fair shake. I do want to try to fairly give their opinions, which we've heard tonight. Mr. Davis has read their concerns to us. With that being said, I think we've gone through the due process, which is afforded everyone a chance to state their opinions and their feelings, and I feel like it's probably time to move forward.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yeah, I kind of feel like Mr. Perry, the way I think looking back on it, hindsight's always 20/20, right? And the law required us to send notice to someone whose zoning was changing. I understand that, and that's what we did. That's all the requirement was. But I think what comes out in some of these letters that we've received is just the fact that we really didn't address people who were affected by the change. Not that you can anticipate everything, but I think that's as much as anything is that people, there may have been a day where everybody grabbed their news from the Farmville Herald. It's a different era these days, and perhaps hard to imagine that somebody doesn't know what's going on regarding this zoning change, but I think that's what's happened, and it's just been some, depending on how you gather your local news, you just may not have heard about it. Yeah, my concern is for them, and also because in the neighborhood I live in, everything is in the avenues has always been pretty much 50, 75, or 100-foot lots, and everything's 140 foot deep. So 100-foot road frontage with a 140-foot depth, that's 14,000 square foot. Now on a 75 or 80-foot lot, you're looking at a potentially 175-foot deep lot, which is, I'm not sure where those lots are. But those are concerns. I'm not sure, again, I think that we've certainly met every requirement. But I think there's some frustration, it's just that those affected just didn't hear back.
So, Mr. Reed?
Yes, I'd like to commend the Berkeley group for the job. I attended meetings in the past and questions was asked, questions were asked, and I think we just need to go ahead and move forward.
Ms. Davis? Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I also like to echo that I've had some concerns as well, but I believe that all of them have been addressed. I'm very thankful for the Planning Commission and the Berkeley Group and their efforts. I really feel like our Planning Commission have dug in super deep here and went to work. I know they revised and revised and revised, and probably sometimes y'all wish they would stop revising. But I'm grateful for the effort, and I believe that we've reached something. While nothing we ever do is going to, 100% meet or please everyone, I believe that we've reached a document here that can be a great guideline. As Mr. Hunter said, there will be things in the future, maybe the near future, that we'll have to go back and readdress. And understanding that, I feel like we're in a position to move forward as well.
Thanks, Ms. Cole. As we operate in the world of COVID,
Since I'm the lesser one, I do have concerns. I appreciate everything you've all done, but when some of my constituents say that they ask and say you don't have to worry about anything, nothing's changing, you're still going to be R1, and we have 3 significant changes within the R1 from density to size of lot and frontage, I would say that we owe it to these citizens to at least delay this for another month. Give them time to sit down and talk and let us make sure that they are okay in this process. Because, to me, honestly, from their perspective, it feels like that we've got a backdoor deal going on here. As much as you put this out there, as much as, we had the public comments, I wouldn't have shown up in that property if I was an R1 and it's still going to be an R1. And then when they saw the public hearing and saw the changes that were made in it, they never had the opportunity until tonight. And I don't think reading the email and having a report from the town manager is enough due diligence to address their concern. So, I will not support this at this point tonight if it's come to a vote.
So, any questions for the folks from the Berkeley Group? Thank you for attending. Thank you for all the hard work that you all have put into this. We deeply appreciate it. I know it's been a long process. I know you all have worked hard. So thank you again.
Thank you, it's my pleasure working.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next 3 items on the agenda are the discussion and possible adoption of the resolution 2020-06-01 comprehensive plan. Everybody's had an opportunity to express their thoughts, so what's the pleasure of council at this point?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2020-06-01 comprehensive plan as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, if you kindly call the roll.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
No.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
No.
And Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Number 20, discussion and possible adoption of ordinance number 196 zoning and subdivision ordinance. Pleasure of council.
May I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 196 zoning and subdivision ordinance as presented?
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cole?
No.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
No.
Mr. Dwyer?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
And Mr. Davis?
Yes.
It's late. 4-3. 21, discussion and possible adoption of ordinance number 197, zoning map. Pleasure of council.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 196, the zoning map as presented.
So,
196.
I did 196.
197.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
No.
Mr. Dwyer?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
No.
Okay. All three have been duly adopted. Item number 22, request authorization for the town manager to sign a grant contract.
Yes, sir, Mayor, this is, actually it's two, and that was my fault. That was brought to my attention, it's actually two. One is $2,450,550, which is 100% funded by the FAA. If you remember, it was the money that we found out that we were getting. It was $3.2 million, I think it was originally, total available or potential for the relocation of an access road, a parking lot, the beacon, and the electrical vault. And the other is a runway safety area design phase for grading. That's $285,500. 90% is from the airport improvement program money from FAA, and the other 10% is from CARES funding or other federal funding that is available at $28,550. If you break that down. In order to move forward with any of these, I just have to have authorization to even make sure that we get the grant.
Pleasure of council.
I move that we authorize the town manager to sign a grant contract for the amount up to $2,450,550. That is 100% FAA funded.
And the other agreement, the airport runway safety area for $285,500. If you amend that motion.
I'll amend that to include that.
So I'll move on a second.
And you amend your second? Okay. Any other discussion, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
And Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Item number 23, discuss refunding Longwood University for bus service. Mr. Davis?
Yes, our transit manager, Julie Adams, has been working with Longwood University. They came to her, it's my understanding in years past, it's been more of just a letter between the two, but they're seeking an agreement, more of an agreement between the two. And before we can bring an agreement to you all, Longwood is requesting and looking at this year that they have already paid for, July to June. They give us, I don't have the dollar figure off the top of my head, for us providing bus service through Farmville area bus routes for the students through town to Walmart, etc. Because of COVID and the university closing, they did not use our services for 7 weeks of time. And so when they were represented from Longwood and Julie talking about an agreement to bring to me to look at and for me to bring to you all, the question arose of the cost being incorporated, either refunding for what they didn't spend this year in use, or would it be able to have a discount on next year's agreement funding for services. And so I'm here before you tonight to see if you're interested in discussing or allowing a refund of $49,315, which is the cost to run the service for 7 weeks, to Longwood University.
Since you're considering a contractual obligation and they're asking for a refund, why don't we send that to the Finance Committee and let them do their due diligence and take a look at that and come back and make a recommendation to council.
You can go okay with that.
Everybody okay with that?
We'll give Jamie a departing gift.
Yeah, you do have to have one little finance committee meeting at the end of the month, so we want to be sure the agenda is full. I'll just refer that to the finance committee.
Okay. You have to.
The mask and the glasses and the fogging is a challenge. Discussion of the human resource consultant agreement. Mr. Davis?
In the budget that you will hopefully be adopting on the 19th, I think it is now, in that we had discussed, instead of because of the times we're in, a position for human resources, that we would look at a consulting basis for this year. And at your stations, I've provided you with one. July 1st is fast approaching. July 1, we would really need somebody in place, or a group in place to help us with this. For benefits, workman's comp, a whole gamut of, obviously, areas that human resources is beneficial. When you all did the executive search, it came to my attention that was based on a cooperative agreement from another contract with another locality, that you were able to get their services from the Berkeley group for an executive search. It incorporates all non-professional services that they render. And so one of the things that they do is, obviously they're in tune to local government. They have what is called a virtual town hall program, or they have a auxiliary town hall program where the person can be on site. The virtual is going to be a lot cheaper, and I have that in front of you. It's 12 hours per week per se. It covers the things that we put pretty much in our draft employee job description that we were hoping to have. And so if you notice that, if you read this, it goes into detail about what that service would be for 12 months. There is an upfront cost in order for them to come on site and review our personnel files, our processes, get an understanding of our organization. And then if anything were to pop up along the way that is more extraordinary, then I'll call it the basics, if you will. Let's say we have a grievance procedure, or we have something that's, some type of suit, which, knock on wood, I hope does not ever happen. Then, we would have to pay over and above that yearly agreement. The benefit of this is 2 of the people that would be assigned to us have and that's in your plan as well, is a vast knowledge of local government human resource experience. Both of them, when they retired from the city of Lynchburg. One was the director of human resources for the city of Lynchburg, and the other worked under her at the city of Lynchburg as a human resource and compensation manager. Both of them, if you combine them, looking at their resumes, probably has over 70 years of experience together. And I think that is a great benefit that we need here. And so I'm asking that I can continue moving forward with this, and we can get this in place before July 1st.
Any questions from council?
I have a question. Mr. Cole, do you have experience working with either this or any other position, as a source out, especially when it comes to human resources?
Well, for the things that are listed on here, human resources can be a contracted out resource. I mean, it's basically some of the inner workings of making sure all of your reports are filed and things are tracked. You found the medical evac. It's basic. It's kind of like hiring an attorney to help you do some of your legal work, to keep you out of trouble. And for the size of our town and the employees, this would be more practical than actually having a human resource person on site all the time. they would be available certainly if staff had concerns to present that to them. They would address those questions, and the staff would be able to contact them if they have a concern about family medical leave or about something else, that they would actually get told what the law is.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'm assuming, Mr. Davis, if there's an HR crisis, there would potentially be someone on site, or could come on site.
It is, and that's that additional fee per hour, over and above what those other requirements are. So if we had something that we really needed to handle that's, more in depth, then yeah, we're gonna have to, it's in that contract, we're just gonna have to pay additional for it.
Also, are they able to update the employee handbook?
That's not part of this. We could surely, and that's not in the budget, but they could do that, but no, that's not part of
I
it.
mean, I know that's something that previously we've talked about that needs to be done, is that employee handbook needs updating.
It does, but that's not the basis.
That's a separate.
Yeah.
Any other questions? What's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into a virtual human resource contract with the Berkeley Group.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Can we pay them virtually as well? No.
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Pear?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 25, request authorization to fill a dispatcher position.
Yes, sir. I'm still under the impression that I have to come before council before making any hires until, I'm assuming you tell me differently. So we have an opening, one of our full-time communications operator trainees was getting ready to be done with her full year, and she's found another job opportunity, so that position is now open, or will be. We got notice on Friday of this, and so I'm asking that we fill that position, a trainee be able to advertise and fill that position, and the hiring salary be $28,540,
Do I hear a motion?
which is the salary we use now.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to fill the vacant full-time position of communication operator trainee position at the starting salary of $28,540.
Second. Motion and second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. Request authorization for town, item 26, request authorization for town treasurer to write off remaining balance for Piedmont Regional Jail.
Mayor, this goes a little ways back. In September of 2018, we discovered a faulty pump sensor at the Doswell fuel site, and gallons of gas were not registering correctly. Sensor was replaced in October, so it's still working as of this point. And this has been brought to the Finance Committee, just so everybody knows. As a result of the sensor issue, there was several thousand gallons of gas unaccounted for in our fuel reports. We showed that there were 39 transactions from the Piedmont Regional Jail, 125 from the town. In trying to solve this, we were only able, we billed the jail and trying to decipher what it was, $6,174.73. However, we were only able to get them to obligate to us on a revised bill of $1,613.42 in March of 2020. So at this point, we still have an unresolved amount of $4,561.31. And at this time, with it being unresolved, we need to write it off of our books.
Does any member of the finance, I know the Finance Committee has discussed this at length. Does any member of the Finance Committee want to comment?
Just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, that money, that amount was the amount that was not accounted for. So we went back and had the town treasurer to do a monthly average, and that monthly average is what we ended up billing them for. versus just a whole amount that was absent. Therefore, assuming that the $4,561.31 was actually most likely used by the town of Farmville. So with that, I make a motion that we authorize the town treasurer to write off the remaining balance of $4,561.31 for the Piedmont Regional Jail in accounts receivable.
Second.
Motion is second. Any additional discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Davis, any other items before we do standing committee and staff reports? In fact, let's do this. Let's do staff reports and then we'll do standing committee.
Sure. West 3rd Street from town limits to Industrial Park Road, Gillum Drive, and Graham should be complete. I think they were working on Graham today, so the repaving should be complete. And hopefully before the end of the week, you'll notice they put the fabric down on the old cleaners area behind us, and they'll be able to put pavement on that hopefully by the end of this week. Main and Millwood, the final inspection is due next week, and so that project should hopefully be complete. If you'll notice, I think they opened up the new traffic lights today, and so that's well on its way. And it's above, it's actually wasn't going to be completed until July, so it's completed ahead of time. Just to give you a heads up, in case you all get calls. Bucket Funeral Home is going to be doing 16 graves here pretty soon.
How many did you say?
16 graves.
16 graves.
Yes, sir. A land that connects to the Amelia landfill is expanding the landfill, and so they're having to move deceased individuals, and so they're going to move them, and they've been contracted by a funeral home here in town, Buckets, and so you'll be seeing those vaults, and they'll be stacked, and the hopes is to bury within 2 days. So if you see vaults, and somebody's like, why are we having so many vaults? Did something happen since we're in this pandemic? It has nothing to do with that. Some of these graves are from the 1800s through the 1900s, and they're being moved to our cemetery. Next week, we should know if the smart scale projects, if they're moving from the pre-screening phase to the next step of screening in or screening conditionally. And once we know that, I'll give you more information. And I had some information for Mr. Hunter on recycling, but we talked about that already. So that's all I have, unless y'all have questions for me.
I have a question. I need to understand on moving these bodies or graves. What's the purpose of it?
So I don't know the full details. This is just what has been supplied to me from Public Works. It's nothing that we have to do. It's just that they're going and they purchased two lots, which is 16 graves in our cemetery. And so my understanding from Robin is that the Amelia landfill, there's land next to it, and that landfill is expanding. And by doing that, I guess in their study, there are people buried there, but there's no names, there's no relatives, so they're having to move those graves to another location.
And they will be buried in Westview.
Yes, sir.
And they bought lots to supply the area that needed to.
Yes, I just didn't want y'all to see 16 volts stacked, and people start calling me saying, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
Will these be unmarked graves?
I think there'll be some type of marker. I don't know all the details, but there'll be some type of marker, but it's my understanding with limited information I have that there won't be names, because I don't know that they know all of the names, or any of them.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Davis. Let's go around the table. We'll start this way, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, as far as finance committee goes, just want to reiterate over the same thing over the last several weeks, months, that I really appreciate the staff and the town treasurer, town manager, everybody, and of course the committee, but everybody that has worked really diligently to produce this budget that we know will have to change as we progress. But I'm just really grateful for the effort that's been put in. And I'd like to thank the dedication and the time that the committee has put in, just really considering heavily the economic times we live in. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reed? Mr. Dwyer?
Nothing here.
Okay.
The only thing I'll mention is, in lieu of certain events that have happened around town here recently, I am thrilled to say that I know that the police department is working very diligently and very hard and very active on troubling situations that are not indicative of our town, and I'm hoping and praying that they will be able to tie these things up pretty quickly and be able to clean up the problems that we've been having here lately. And I appreciate their dedication and hard work towards that.
Recreation Committee has not met recently, although I did sit in on a community Zoom meeting regarding a potential event in town. I had a task as a result of that meeting that I dropped the ball on, but luckily Mr. Davis, our town manager, picked the ball up. And so I will look to schedule a recreation meeting when we are all available here in the next 2 weeks so that we can discuss some of those events and priorities.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hunter? We won't just purposely go around the table again under the comments section. Does anybody have any particular comments? That was committee reports, actually.
Sorry.
So, anybody have anything that?
Just wants to wish Mr. Davis the best on behalf. It's been a real honor serving with him. Appreciate that. I drive the Millwood Road or south of Main every day, and that to my delight tonight, we're now seeing the permanent lights lit up on the Millwood intersection. It looks fantastic. So just a job well done. One last thing. Even though I would have liked to see the vote tonight, where I voted no 3 times, which probably matches my career vote no's, but I think it's a very good document. I would like to see it postponed for a month. I have all the confidence in the world in the efforts that we're taking forward.
Yes, sir. I think I brought this up before. Up at the Wood Museum, they're getting ready to finish putting new lighting. I think I brought up about the crosswalk on Griffin Boulevard from the museum to the Verizon parking lot. Was able to have a conversation with President Longwood or Scott has some information?
That was brought up in another meeting.
Right.
That one and another one, and so we're just have to look at the cost. We'll need to look at the cost and bring it back to council to put those. It was talked about kind of like the ones right here that had the blinking lights that go from Midtown. That you push the button or walk by it, and it starts blinking so that you can cross. So those are what we're looking at. We just need to price them out and put them in.
Anything better than what you got now?
So you are working on it, Mr. Davis? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Reed?
Mr. Davis, I'd like to wish you all the luck.
Just to wish him luck. Thanks for his 8 years of hard work.
I would like to say I commend Chief Ellington and Farmville's finest. I know these are different times, and there's been a lot going on, and I commend them for the nature in which they have conducted their business. I would also like to say that Jamie Davis, it has been one of the great pleasures getting to know you through the course of this serving on council. I wish you all the best.
Well, I'm not gonna start talking about Jamie Davis. But it has been a pleasure. I will see you around. I will be ringing your phone. I do have one request in reference to our signage, and I spoke earlier to Mr. Atkins about throughout the travels of the state, we noticed in different towns and counties, they have the signage up that's reminding people that we're in phase 2, wear your mask. But we only have one of those machines, and we probably need a few more to do to be able to, I think the police department has that, correct? The digital signing, that you can use in the program, you can put wordage in.
We got one, but it's on its last leg.
Okay. But just to keep people aware of what phase we're in with this COVID-19, it'd be nice to have 3 signs. I put one on Millwood, one on 3rd, and one on Main. But I don't know the cost, so it'd be nice to get the cost to see what we can do. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, I would like to say a few things if that's okay. It's not. I have about 20 minutes left. No, I'm just kidding. I first want to congratulate Councilmember-elect Ms. Sally Amos, who's with us tonight, and congratulations on becoming the new representative for Ward E. Tonight is my final night as a council member as far as council meetings go for Ward E, and I'd like to first thank my wife and children for their unconditional love and support over the last years as a council member. I know that some days have been a lot easier than others, we'll just say that. I'd like to thank the citizens of Ward E. It's been a pleasure and to represent them and to represent their interests. You know, it's all of us that are elected know this, that it is a distinctive moment when you realize that you represent a group of people versus just your family. And I appreciate that opportunity from the residents. And while I can look back on many occasions and say, I wish I had or I could have done more, I am thankful that I feel like I've given it my best. And I'd like to thank the mayor. You know, it was probably about 16 years ago that, like many people, I sent the mayor, who was then a council member, multiple messages, called him several times questioning different things. And I was just young and dumb and still partly that way. But he said, I tell you what, why don't you come to Finance Committee and bring those issues up, right? I said, sure, because I figured everybody did, right? And I was the only person in that Finance Committee that day sitting there saying, you know what, I think there's some changes that I'd like for you to consider. And I was received greatly that day. So, and I appreciated it. But the mayor really encouraged me, hey, if you really have a passion and you really want to serve your community, then, you know, he led me down a path of, hey, why don't you first serve on committee, right? Kind of a testing ground. And then that evolved into running for council. And I just appreciate the mayor. You know, once I heard it said one time that passions usually derive from one or two things. They're either birthed out of seeing something wrong that you want to make right, or they're birthed out of seeing something right that you want to help keep that way. And I think that I have seen over the last 8 years, I've seen the mayor really show compassion and passion in both of those areas, and I greatly appreciate that. For my fellow council members, I had a local dairy farmer tell me one time, Jamie, you know what makes a good councilman? And I said, no, I don't. He said, let me tell you what it makes somebody who has the ability to reason. And I say this to my council members here and to our community, that we have a great number of people here that have the ability to reason. They don't have to always be right, but when they walk out of this door, there's still one group, one team serving the public, and I applaud each of you for that. I know that that's a tough task in a lot of ways, especially since you have a tendency to have more information than what is generally out there, and I appreciate it. And I know that you work very hard, and I've seen each of you at different times really have to weigh heavy on issues and make tough decisions, and I respect you for them, even the ones I didn't agree with. I'd also like to thank the staff here at the town of Farmville. We have a great staff that over the last 8 years, I know we've experienced a lot of changes, and I think that we've been able together to right the ship, so to speak. And I just ask you as a resident to continue that, to continue driving the ship in the right direction. So, you know, with that, I just want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Jamie. It's, I never do well with goodbyes, and as Jamie said, I've known Jamie since before he didn't have hair. You know, when I first met Jamie, he had hair, and
That's why I don't have hair now.
and mine was not great. But we've had a long friendship, and we've had a lot of discussions about town issues, and while we didn't always agree, we still wound up friends. And so your service is greatly appreciated. Thank you. You didn't know that day coming to that budget committee meeting that one day you would wind up chairing that committee, and you've done a great job with that, for which I am very appreciative, and which I'm sure the citizens of the town of Farmville are very appreciative for where we are today financially versus where we were a number of years ago. I still hope you'll stay involved. I still hope that you'll stay engaged. Remember that Ms. Amos is your council member now when you have issues.
We'll be talking.
You should ring her number and let her know. But thank you for your service. We wish you and you know what? Are we still on, Ashley? Your family is here tonight. If I may, let me introduce them. Wife, Ginger, if you guys will stand. Ginger Davis, Ryder Davis, and Worth Davis, all hiding behind masks tonight. But thank you guys for lending dad and husband to us for these years and putting up with his shenanigans on town council. And we deeply appreciate it, and Farmville is a better place for his serving. With that, I will entertain a motion to continue this meeting until Friday, June the 19th at 10 a.m. So moved. Motion and second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. If we could, gentlemen, gather at the front real quick for a picture, a presentation and a picture.